How well do you really know someone? One moment, he was everything, charming, brilliant, impossible to resist. The next, a single phone call shattered it all. A stranger's voice. A quiet warning. Stay away from him. Lies? Secrets. A past he never mentioned. Now, she's left questioning everything. If she walks away, she might save herself. If she stays, she might uncover a truth far worse than betrayal. But the heart doesn't listen to reason. And sometimes, the most dangerous love is the one you can't let go of. Stay. You need to hear the rest. Ivy Quinn believed in structure, in the quiet rhythm of a well-planned life. Each morning, she arrived at Clearview High 15 minutes early, sipping her coffee as she reviewed lesson plans. She loved the scent of books, the hum of students filling the hallways, the small victories of watching them grow. Teaching wasn't just her job, it was her purpose. She wasn't the type to chase grand romances or get lost in fleeting passions. Love, to her, was a slow, steady thing, built on honesty and trust. She wasn't waiting for it. If it came, fine. If not, she was content in the life she had built. But then came Knox Wilder. He was the kind of man people noticed. Tall, broad-shouldered, with an easy confidence that made the most complex equations seem effortless. He was charming, quick-witted, and had a knack for making people laugh. Even the most indifferent students couldn't resist his energy. Ivy had watched him from a distance at first, curious but cautious. He carried himself like someone who had been through things, someone who had learned how to hide the weight of his past behind an easy smile. And then, one day, their worlds collided. It was during a staff meeting when Knox slid into the seat beside her, leaning in slightly with that signature smirk. "So, Ms. Quinn, is it true you've never given a student detention?" Ivy glanced at him, unimpressed. "I believe in discipline through understanding, not punishment." "Ah," Knox mused, pretending to be deep in thought. "So you're the tough love type. Got it." She rolled her eyes, but couldn't stop the small smile that tugged at her lips. And just like that, something unspoken settled between them. At first, it was just easy conversation, quick exchanges in the teacher's lounge, stolen moments between classes. But soon, their interactions stretched longer. He made her laugh, challenged her in ways no one else had. Their shared lunches turned into late-night text conversations. Little by little, the walls she had built around her heart began to crack. And then, there were the moments. The way his gaze lingered just a second too long. The accidental brushes of hands. The way he made her feel seen, as if she was the most fascinating person in the room. Ivy wasn't naive. She knew attraction when she felt it. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that Knox Wilder was hiding something. Something that would change everything. The phone call came on a quiet evening, just as Ivy was grading papers. At first, she almost ignored it, an unknown number, probably a spam call. But something, some inexplicable pull, made her answer. "Is this Ivy Quinn?" A woman's voice. Cool. Poised. "Yes." "Who is this?" Ivy frowned, gripping her pen a little tighter. "My name is Olivia Wilder." A pause. "I believe you know my husband, Knox." The world tilted. Ivy's breath hitched. "I think you're mistaken," she forced out, though her heart had already begun a frantic, uneven rhythm. "No, I'm not." The woman's tone sharpened. "We've been married for 5 years. And I'm calling to tell you, whatever you think is happening between you two, it ends now." Ivy opened her mouth, but no words came. Then, ping. A text notification. With trembling fingers, she clicked it open. A photo. Knox and Olivia, standing in front of what looked like a beach house. His arm wrapped around her, their smiles wide, effortless. They looked happy. Another ping. More photos. Their wedding day. A cozy dinner. A New Year's Eve kiss. Memories of a life Ivy had never known existed. "You're lying," she whispered, but the evidence was staring back at her, undeniable. "I'm giving you a chance to walk away," Olivia continued, her voice chillingly even. "Because if you don't, I promise you, I will make you regret it." The call ended. Silence. Ivy sat there, her mind a storm of disbelief and rage. How had she not seen the signs? The little things, Knox never inviting her over, never mentioning past relationships, always keeping a careful distance when conversations turned too personal. A lie. Their entire connection, a lie. She didn't sleep that night. She couldn't. The next morning, she walked into the teacher's lounge with only one goal: confront Knox Wilder. "Tell me it's not true." Ivy stood in the empty classroom, arms crossed tightly over her chest, heart hammering. Knox turned from his desk, brows furrowing. "Ivy. Don't." Her voice was steel. "Don't say my name like that. Just tell me the truth. Are you married?" A muscle in his jaw ticked. He exhaled, rubbing a hand over his face. "It's complicated. It's a yes or no question, Knox." Silence. Then, yes. The ground beneath her felt unsteady. "Ivy, please." "No." Her voice cracked, but she didn't care. "You made me feel like I could trust you. Like what we had meant something. And the entire time, you had a wife." Knox took a step closer, eyes pleading. "It's not what you think." "Oh? Then enlighten me." "Because what I think is that you lied to me and made me the other woman without my consent." He swallowed hard. "I didn't tell you because I was afraid. Afraid of losing you before I even had a chance to explain." Ivy let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Explain." "Explain what, Knox?" "That you love your wife, but wanted me on the side. That you're just another cheating bastard." "I don't love Olivia." His voice was raw. "I haven't for a long time." Ivy's breath caught, but she forced herself to stay angry. "Then why are you still with her?" He hesitated. A flicker of something dark crossed his face. "Because she has something on me, Ivy. Something that could destroy me." Ivy's stomach turned. "What do you mean?" Knox ran a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. "I can't leave Olivia, because if I do, she'll ruin my life." A chill ran down Ivy's spine. "What is she holding over you, Knox?" He hesitated, and in that moment, Ivy knew, this wasn't just about a marriage. This was something deeper. Something darker. And she wasn't sure if she was ready for the answer. Knox didn't speak right away. He sat there, hands clenched, as if forcing himself to breathe. Ivy had never seen him like this, so vulnerable, so utterly defeated. "Tell me the truth, Knox." Her voice was softer now, but there was no room for lies. He exhaled shakily. "Olivia isn't just my wife, Ivy. She's my captor." Ivy's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" Knox rubbed a hand over his face, his voice barely above a whisper. "She has something on me. Something that could destroy everything." He hesitated before continuing, his words heavy with shame. "When I was in high school, I wasn't this. I wasn't the Knox Wilder you know." He let out a bitter laugh. "I was a mess. Always in trouble. Fighting, skipping school, getting drunk at 16. I didn't care about anything. Ivy stayed silent, letting him speak. One night, I went too far. A group of us broke into the principal's office, stupid, reckless, looking for test answers. But I got caught. Ivy's breath hitched. I was going to be expelled. The school was pressing charges. It would have ruined me before I even had a chance. He swallowed hard. But my parents, they paid them off. The records disappeared. The principal retired early, and I got to go on like nothing ever happened. Ivy's mind spun. Olivia knows. Knox nodded grimly. Her father was a lawyer at the firm that handled the payout. When we met years later, she told me she knew everything. But she didn't care, she loved me, she said. His jaw clenched. I was stupid enough to believe her. Ivy suddenly understood. Olivia wasn't just a controlling wife. She was blackmailing him. If she exposes you, Ivy whispered, I lose everything. Knox's voice was hollow. No school will ever hire me again. My career, my reputation, gone. Ivy felt her chest tighten. The man sitting in front of her wasn't the reckless boy from years ago. He had rebuilt himself, changed, dedicated his life to teaching. And yet, Olivia had trapped him in a past he had long outgrown. Ivy didn't know what hurt more, the fact that Knox had kept this from her, or the fact that he had no way out. But maybe he did. Because she wasn't afraid of Olivia Wilder. That night, Ivy barely slept. She sat on her couch, laptop open, coffee untouched, scrolling through everything she could find on Olivia Wilder. And what she found? Olivia wasn't just manipulative. She was dangerous. Multiple lawsuits had been filed against her, former colleagues, business partners, even an ex-fiancé, people who had accused her of blackmail, coercion, and fraud. None of the cases had gone to trial. They had all mysteriously disappeared. She was a master at control. And Knox was just her latest victim. Ivy's fingers trembled as she closed her laptop. This wasn't just about love anymore. This was about saving Knox. And she wasn't going to back down. The message came at 2:17 a.m. Ivy had been staring at her laptop screen, her research on Olivia still open, when her phone vibrated against the wooden coffee table. She reached for it absent-mindedly, expecting a late-night text from Knox. But when she saw the sender, a cold shiver ran down her spine. Unknown number. Stay away from him. This is your only warning. A second later, another message appeared. You think you're smart, Ivy? You think you can play detective? You have no idea who you're dealing with. Then, just as her breath caught in her throat, an attachment. With shaking fingers, Ivy clicked it open. A scanned copy of a confidential school file. Knox's old expulsion report. The one that was supposed to be buried forever. A final message followed. Walk away. Or I ruin him. Ivy's grip tightened around her phone. Olivia was trying to scare her. Trying to control her the way she had controlled Knox for years. But what Olivia didn't know, Ivy Quinn didn't scare easily. She wasn't walking away. Not now. She was all in. She knows, Ivy said the next morning, pacing Knox's living room. She knows I'm looking into her, and she's trying to shut me down. Knox sat on the couch, hands clasped, his jaw clenched tight. He hadn't spoken since she showed him the messages. Knox. Ivy knelt in front of him, forcing him to meet her eyes. We have to fight back. He let out a bitter laugh. Fight back? Against Olivia? She's ruined people for less, Ivy. She only has power because you let her have it. Ivy's voice was fierce now. If we expose her first, if we bring her down before she can use this against you, she won't have anything left to hold over you. Knox hesitated. Aren't you tired of being afraid? Ivy whispered. He exhaled slowly. And when he finally met her gaze, there was something different in his eyes. Determination. What do we do? 2 days later, the plan was set. Ivy and Knox had spent hours gathering evidence, testimonies from Olivia's former victims, legal documents, even emails that hinted at her past blackmail schemes. But there was only one way to end this. A face-to-face confrontation. The restaurant was dimly lit, the air thick with tension. Olivia Wilder walked in wearing a blood-red dress. Her lips curled in amusement as she slid into the booth across from them. Knox, she purred, eyes flicking between him and Ivy. How dramatic. A secret meeting. I feel so important. Knox's expression was unreadable. This ends tonight, Olivia. Olivia arched a brow. Oh? And what exactly is this? Ivy leaned forward. Your games. Your blackmail. Your control over Knox. Olivia laughed, smooth and unbothered. You poor thing. Do you really think you can save him? She turned to Knox, voice dripping with mock sympathy. Did she tell you she loves you? That she'll fix everything? Cute. But naive. Knox didn't react. He simply slid a USB drive across the table. Inside this drive is everything we've collected on you. Every person you've extorted, every lie you've told. If you don't walk away from Knox tonight, this goes to the police. And the press. For the first time, Olivia's smirk faltered. You wouldn't, she said, but there was a flicker of doubt in her voice. Knox held her gaze. Try me. A long silence stretched between them. Then, Olivia exhaled through her nose, tapping her manicured nails against the table. Fine. She stood gracefully, adjusting the strap of her purse. You want out, Knox? Consider yourself free. Ivy's breath caught. That's it. But as Olivia turned to leave, she tossed one last parting shot over her shoulder. Oh, and Ivy. She smirked. Enjoy your hero while you can. Because by tomorrow morning, he won't have a job. And then, she was gone. The email went out at 8 a.m. A forwarded message from Olivia to the school board, detailing Knox's past, his juvenile crimes, the cover-up, everything. By the time Knox walked into school, whispers had already begun. Teachers avoided his gaze. Students scrolled through their phones, murmuring in hushed voices. And then, the inevitable happened. Mr. Wilder, the principal needs to see you. Knox closed his eyes briefly, then nodded. Ivy watched as he walked down the hallway, his shoulders tense, the weight of the past finally catching up to him. She couldn't let this be how his story ended. So she followed him. The faculty meeting was tense. Knox stood before a panel of administrators, his fate being decided by people who only saw him as a scandal, not as the man he had become. Ivy couldn't stay silent. She stepped forward. You all think you know who Knox Wilder is. Her voice was steady, echoing in the silent room. You think his past defines him. But if we judged every student by their worst mistake, how many of them would we give up on? Murmurs rippled through the room. Ivy turned to Knox, her chest tightening at the defeated look in his eyes. This man has dedicated his life to teaching. He has inspired students, given them a reason to believe in themselves. And now, because of something he did as a teenager, something he's spent his entire life making up for, you're ready to throw him away. Silence. Then, slowly, one of the board members cleared their throat. We need to discuss this further before making a decision. Knox wasn't fired that day. His case was put under review, but more importantly, his students didn't turn against him. When he walked out of the meeting, they were waiting. A group of them, some of his toughest kids, the ones he had never given up on, stood in the hallway, watching. Then, one of them started clapping. Then another. Until the entire hallway was filled with applause. Because Knox Wilder wasn't just a man with a past. He was a man who proved that the past didn't define you. And for the first time in years, Knox didn't feel like he was running anymore. He was finally free. Knox was finally free from Olivia, free from the suffocating chains of a marriage built on manipulation. But freedom didn't erase the scars. It didn't undo the damage. The school board eventually ruled in his favor. He wasn't fired, but the scrutiny remained. Parents whispered. Some colleagues kept their distance. A few teachers still saw him as the reckless teenager he used to be, not the man he had fought to become. The students, though, they never wavered. And Ivy had been his greatest defender. His anchor. His hope. But as the dust settled, Knox began to sense something shifting between them. "You're quiet," Knox said one evening as they sat on her couch, the air between them heavy with unspoken words. Ivy traced the rim of her coffee mug, eyes distant. "I'm thinking." Knox exhaled, already knowing where this was going. "About us." Ivy didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned to face him, her expression soft, conflicted. "I love you, Knox." The words were gentle but carried weight. "But love isn't always enough." His chest tightened. "What are you saying?" She hesitated. "I need time." "Time for what?" His voice was quiet, afraid of the answer. "To figure out who I am outside of all this. Outside of Olivia, outside of the chaos." She met his gaze, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I need to know if we're together, because we truly belong. Or because we were just fighting the same battle." Knox swallowed hard. He wanted to argue. To tell her that what they had was real. That they could survive this. But deep down, he knew she was right. Everything between them had been forged in fire. In secrets and lies and battles fought side by side. Did they really love each other? Or had they simply needed each other to survive? The day Ivy left, it rained. She stood by her car, bags packed, the road ahead of her uncertain. Knox stood beside her, hands in his pockets, looking at her like he was memorizing every detail. "You'll come back?" he asked, forcing a small, sad smile. "I don't know." Ivy's voice was barely a whisper. He nodded, exhaling slowly. "If you ever need me." "I know," she cut in softly. A long pause. Then, she leaned up, pressing one last kiss to his lips, gentle, lingering, bittersweet. "Goodbye, Knox." And then, she was gone. Weeks passed. Then months. Knox threw himself into teaching, rebuilding, proving that he was more than his past. And Ivy? She found herself in a new city, a new school, a new life. But no matter how far she went, some nights, she still thought about him. She still wondered. Would they ever find their way back to each other? Or had their love been nothing more than a beautiful, tragic chapter in a story that was never meant to last? The answer? Only time would tell. Some love stories don't end with a perfect happily ever after. Some end in lessons, painful, necessary, and life-changing. Knox Wilder was trapped. Not by love, but by control. Olivia had kept him bound, using fear as a weapon, twisting his past into chains he couldn't break. And he wasn't alone. So many people are stuck in marriages, in relationships, in situations where they feel powerless to leave, because of fear, because of secrets, because of the belief that they don't deserve better. But the truth? No one should have to live like that. Breaking free isn't just about walking away. It's about reclaiming yourself. And Knox did. But freedom always comes with scars. Ivy Quinn could have turned away. She could have ignored the warning signs, could have let fear push her into silence. But she fought back. Not just for Knox, but for herself. Because love isn't about accepting pain. It's not about staying in something broken, just because you feel something deep. Sometimes, love means fighting. And sometimes, the fight means leaving. Knox and Ivy didn't end up together. Not in the way people expect love stories to go. There was no wedding, no grand romantic reunion. But there was growth. Knox found his redemption. He proved he was more than his past, that he was worth more than the mistakes Olivia had used to control him. And Ivy? She chose herself. She chose to walk away, not because she didn't love Knox, but because she refused to lose herself in someone else's battle. Because sometimes, love isn't about holding on. It's about knowing when to let go. And maybe, just maybe, if love is real, if it's meant to be, one day, the road will lead them back to each other. Or maybe it won't. And either way, that's okay. Because the most important love story is the one you write for yourself.